welcome to another episode of the M42 Adventures podcast. Again, I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and we are here with you on this lovely Friday. We have a gentleman coming in by the name of Trevor Cowley. He actually owns a company. I don't know if it's a community or if it's a business, but it's called Real Business Owners. And he's just an amazing individual from what I've heard. I don't know him. We ran around in the same circles growing up, but never made the contact. But he's doing amazing things, and I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to chat with this guy. He's a very high-achieving person, and that's what I'm here for, is to learn from people like that and to grow and to question what I'm doing and making sure that I'm, living to my full potential. And this sounds like a gentleman that can help me. So, Trevor Cowley, let's jump into this one and see where it goes.
Is this brand new?
Yeah, so I started it 10 months ago. So
the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
You're just doing weekly?
Once a week, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we, do you know Ryan Mickler?
Yeah.
So he's a partner in this.
Okay.
And so I had the idea a couple years ago. And do you know anything about us at all? Anything?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen a couple things that he's posted or whatever, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So started it up. So a little bit about me is lost everything in the recession. I think we're similar. I've seen some of your stuff. You're a serial entrepreneur, right? So I've started 13 companies. So I think we're similar.
How many have failed?
None.
Really?
0. Yep,
Wow.
Yep.
Maybe I just threw too much shit against the wall.
Yeah, when I got out.
Awesome.
Yeah, hoping it'd be awesome. I started throwing money around after money came in and just, it's like,
let's try this.
let's see if this works and this works and this,
Yeah.
And it was best if I would have just not done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Well, and I've had a couple that were not real profitable, just kind of bumping along, and I sell them.
Yeah.
So I've sold 4 or 5. But so I that's kind of a little bit about me. Is I started that, lost everything in the recession. I had a construction business in Tijuana, Mexico, and lost everything, and then built it back up over the course of like 6 years. And in 2016, I sold my 4 main businesses here in St. George to my employees, just 4 of my employees.
So what do you do? Owner finance it pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
and just say, hey, you guys are going to pay me X amount, for extended period of time.
Yeah, I gave them a deal.
Yeah.
So I wanted to leave, and so I quote unquote retired January 17 and haven't worked in the last 8 years. So I've been traveling all over the world, 70 plus countries with my wife and kids. So that's my passion, is just being with my family and traveling. And so when I went, my dad was a partner at the time, and I went to them and said, hey, I want to go quit. And he's like, for how long? And I'm like, at least 2 years, probably, hopefully forever. My dad's like, what the hell? No.
How old were you at that time?
36. So I bought him out. I gave him a condo, traded him a condo. I had half a dozen condos out at Green Valley. Yeah. So I gave him a condo, bought him out, and then in December I ended up selling to one of my employees, and then it progressed, and now there's 5 that have ownership. So I gave him a deal. We had it, we had them all valued, and I gave him a really big discount because I wanted to leave, and I wanted people to watch it. So I kept 40% of all of them, and they bought 60, and that's where we're at today.
Oh, wow.
And
smart.
so, yeah.
Keep revenue coming in or cash flow coming in without the struggle or headaches or
100%
day-to-day stuff.
Still get all the monthly dividends and all the perks and stuff. And
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah, so it's been good. So
good for you.
Did that, and then I've come home twice while we've been traveling to have kids. So I came home in December of like 19, I think, and had a baby, and then COVID hit. So we were home for the year, which actually worked out perfect because it was right when we had our baby. And then left after that, and then we went for another few years, and then we just came home last January, started this up, and then I leave March 4th, so like 3 weeks for another 2 years.
And you just had another baby.
Just had another baby, and I can't leave until she has a passport. So we're rushing everything, trying to get it. So I'm out again here in 3 weeks.
What do you do all day when you're traveling? Like, I don't know. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
I couldn't do it. I hate traveling.
Do you really?
I hate traveling.
Really?
I can't wait to get home.
Yeah. And I get that.
I've like created like a.
Well, it sounds like you've got a cool spot. You got animals.
I've got
and
my
farm,
my
sanctuary.
I don't know, man. I might be on the spectrum or something, because
I think all of us that have abused things kind of. I just feel like we're all there somewhere
On the spectrum?
a little bit. Like, I don't know if it caused us to be or if we did it because we're on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I have to have
Routine.
consistency and routine.
Yeah.
Like, if I just have to.
Yeah.
It helps keep me sane, and it gives me guardrails and all of that. So, like,
For sure.
I don't know. It's to me fascinating to hear that what other people, how they do that.
Yeah.
But my mind would just chew me alive. Right? Everybody's mind's obviously a little bit different. I really think that that's the game of life, is to kind of figure out what makes you tick and
1000%.
how to operate in a manner in which honors you, that keeps you sane, keeps you motivated, all of those things. And so if you found it doing that, I think that's cool.
Yeah. And the thing for me, like when we first went out, the biggest, because I'm like that. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so I like being busy and creative and all those things. It sounds like we're similar. So for me, like when I stay at a place for 7 days, I go crazy.
I gotta
go.
Change,
I gotta go. Yeah.
Change.
Yeah, so over the course of 8 years, I have all the stats, but we stayed in like 600 Airbnbs, 71 countries. We don't sit long. So we found that under 4 days is too chaotic with a family of 6.
Trying to unpack. You can't even get settled, really.
Can't get settled. You can't see stuff.
Yeah.
And so kind of our sweet spot's like four nights. If it's, Burl, 1 night will be good. But if it's, Vegas, we do 4 nights, something like that. Or if it was,
depending on what there is to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
that's cool.
a little bit about me. And then so the way M42 Adventures came along was, I was talking to Ryan Mickler, our partner, and telling him that, I think people need to be outside. And that's where we're going to talk a little bit about what you're doing. Chase told me a little bit about it, but getting outside and whatever it is, running, golf, hiking, traveling, fishing, any of those things.
Yeah, I believe in that.
Just getting outside. I think it's healthy. I think it's,
me too.
And so M42 Adventures is basically, we're trying to take people and we take them on daily ones where we take them out shooting or cooking over fire or whatever. And then we do 3 or 4 day ones where it's horseback riding or UTVs. And then we do like 7 day ones. So we took 22 people to Africa last year. We took them to Alaska, Hawaii. I leave for Costa Rica in 3 weeks. That's where we're kind of heading off. And there's a M42 experience down there where we're doing surfing. I've never surfed, but I want to try it.
I'm about to.
We'll see.
In Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
or at least belly board.
That's right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Right
Call it
somewhere.
surfing.
Exactly.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Call it tumbling.
Exactly.
Probably.
So anyway, so that's kind of what
That's cool.
what we're doing and what we're about.
What's the whole 42? What's that for?
So M42 is a scientific name for the Orion constellation.
Gotcha.
So it was
that's why it's incorporated in the logo.
Yep. So it was called
Exodus
with just XODUS. And we did that for about 2 months. And then Ryan found a company out in like North Carolina that had a podcast, and it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
It's spelled different, but similar enough to where,
close.
yeah. And so, so M42, it's just a way, it's something that's outdoors.
That's cool.
Got the constellation in it. And then, trying to, something that you can trademark and, find the website. That's the hardest thing, man, naming stuff.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Impossible.
Took me forever.
Yeah, I mean, the .coms are tough.
People
ones.
just type them in and buy them. And so
well, it's more like, people are doing the, .biz.
Yeah, .org. .org.
Like,
I think it's like nonprofit, but
yeah.
But yeah, so anyway,
Cool.
so that's what we're doing,
Cool.
and
I think that's awesome.
for me, it's more like just I want to meet cool people. It's selfish. I see you have a Mountain Up shirt on.
Yeah, my buddy Trevor Farnes owns it.
He was on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we had him on a couple months ago.
Were you talking to him at Hunt Expo, or was it at
Hunt Expo.
what was it called?
Yeah, I missed him in Vegas by
Yeah.
a day,
Just-
and then but he's.
I mean, I don't do a whole lot of mountain stuff, you know. I just
do you not
You
hunt?
run up
You don't
them?
hunt?
Nah,
No?
I don't hunt, none of that stuff.
Yeah. He's actually coming on a hunt in Hawaii, so that deer in the corner is an axis deer.
Yeah,
And it's
I wouldn't
archery?
know, I wouldn't know any. So I bought a bow just to mess around in the yard.
You
That's
should
awesome.
come. You should come, dude.
So
I'll
it's
come
like-
hang a bag in my backyard. You can come down and shoot a bow.
you know, I got stuff at my house,
nice.
you know, or
Nice.
whatever. So I go in my yard and just to kill some time or whatever. But
Would you ever do it?
it's not that I wouldn't ever not do it. It's again the regimen that I'm on, like starting the world record.
Yeah, I wanna talk
you
about
know,
that.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
that's crazy.
I'm you know,
You're gonna be busy.
I'm just so focused on different things. Like I have nothing against it, and I actually think it's really cool. And I'm sure it's like a hell of an experience just as a man to go out in the wilderness and be able to do something like that. I can already see that if I went and did it once, I would probably get it. I'm a very addictive type person, right? So if I started running, I take it to an extreme level.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that would be in the budget.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, if you ever want to go,
I don't play video games
Yeah,
or anything
I
either
don't either.
because it's like
go down that
if I
rabbit
fell
hole.
in love with it,
Yep.
then I would be a degenerate.
I
Like
get that
that's just
completely.
what it is,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because I just know my personality. I don't go out at night. I don't go hang out with people. I have data on myself that there's certain things that if I do and I actually like it, you know, bad things end up happening. So I've got to be very selective about where I point my mind. Where I can get myself into some trouble. And I'm not saying hunting would get me in trouble. I
it would.
I
It would.
already know that naturally, you know, where you're kind of competing with you and an animal and nature and stuff like that, it would be very
addicting.
yeah.
You're like, I would like
certain
it.
of
I
Well,
can
if you-
feel it.
I mean, I bought a bow and
Yeah.
started, you know, shooting it.
Did you get the
because-
bow because of Trevor or
No,
just-
I got the bow because of Cameron Haynes.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Originally. And that's, you know, when I really started running is the guy that homeboy that just left here that was just on the podcast. He was saying, hey, you went to the gym with that guy, the big dude or
Bob,
whatever. And it was him actually
Oh, nice.
that said, hey, there's this guy that runs, you know, it's like a marathon a day or something like that. And I said, bullshit, dude. I said, F that guy.
Yeah.
Is what I said. It was literally just an immediate reaction. I said, F that guy.
Yeah.
You know, and then I asked myself, I'm like, why would I be hating on somebody that I don't even know? And I'm like, dude, this guy is outperforming me like by leaps and bounds. And my initial reaction as a dude was like, F that guy. So literally right after that, this was just like a conversation in my head. I literally Googled him.
How long ago was this?
3 or 4 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
I Googled him and saw at that point he was sponsored by Under Armour and had some Under Armour running shoes. So I bought them because I had just barely started kind of my running journey. And that's why Bob had said like, hey, this guy runs X amount, right? And I thought I was trying to do a couple miles a day or whatever. I thought that was impressive.
That is to me. That is.
Based upon the environments that I was in at the time, right? And then all of a sudden, and I knew the level of difficulty that it felt for me to even do that, but because it was obviously new and anything new is hard at first.
Yeah, that'd kill me.
And then all of a sudden there's this guy doing 1,000,000 times more than me. And I was like, man, screw that dude or whatever. I ended up buying his shoes right on the spot right there just so that I could see his shoes in my closet anytime that I didn't feel like doing it. So I could see that there's another man out there doing way more than me. And on the days that I really didn't want to do it, I would wear his shoes and I would just stare down at my feet as I would run. And just be like, somebody else out there's putting in way more work than you. Like, don't complain about it. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know, and so so my admiration for him based upon that situation increased, right? And then I continued to look into him more and more, right? Instead of just buying his shoes, I followed him on social media and oh, now he's a bow hunter. I didn't know that, you know, and so he'd shoot and stuff. And I'm like, well, now I bought this land out there, have some property. And I'm like, huh, that looks like it would be a fun thing. Since I don't hang out and I don't kick it, and I don't, you know, and I was like, okay, well, you know, now I've got property and stuff. It's like, yeah, I think that would be a fun new thing to try, like a challenge of trying something new, right? Yeah, I enjoy it. Okay. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's, you know, I don't get it out as much as I did when I first bought the bow and was out in the yard a lot more. But my running obviously has increased. I did a 2-a-day every day for 3 years challenge, which kept me busy for like 3 hours a day.
2 miles a day?
It was 2 workouts every day.
Okay. Okay.
For 3 years straight.
Wow.
And so that then that ended up.
I hate working out.
Dude, I love it.
I know. So that's a difference. That's what it's like. You don't like travel.
I hate it.
I just went to the gym this morning.
Yeah.
And I've got to figure out how to love it. I got to figure it out because it's a necessity.
So, you know, it's really usually what people hate about it is the process, like getting up and having to go.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I really don't want to go. I hate it, blah, blah, you know, all that. And so I believe that it's you know, whatever you put the majority of your focus on determines the level of love or hate that you have for it. And when I was at the lowest spot that I had ever been in, I had to ask myself, okay, what am I doing when I feel best in my body and mind? And I said, every time I get done with a workout, I've never not felt good at the end of a workout.
100%.
Like getting there's crappy, waking up early is crappy. You know, sometimes the workouts are crappy. But as you're walking out, there's a certain, just a sense of pride and accomplishment every single time.
Every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
And so my attention went on, I've felt good every time I've moved my body. And I don't care what I have to go through in order to feel good, but I did feel good every time I left. And so when I was at that low spot, prior to committing to the, you know, the challenge of doing the 2-a-days and stuff, that's where that came from. Is I had made a lot of money one year and was like, okay, well, money's not going to bring me the level of happiness that I thought it would. And money's not going to make you feel good in your body and mind. It's just a number sitting in a bank account, right? Like you still have to live inside of this vessel.
Right.
And if it
still got to deal with your thoughts.
Yeah. If it doesn't feel good, you know, you could stare at a bank account with $1 billion in it. Like you're not going to be able to buy your way out of an emotion of how you feel about yourself or how you feel inside your body and mind. And so you can buy things to distract you from that emotion temporarily, but when that temporary wears off, you're left with yourself, right? And so then I was just like, okay, I got to redesign my life because at one point it was designed around money and making a lot of it, and I did that, and then I was left at that low spot, and then I asked myself that question, and it was every time you move your body, you feel good. So I was like, man, then I'm going to move my body a couple times every single day to make sure that I feel good, right? I'm not going to just check the box once. I'm going to do it multiple times. And so that's where that started, was just because I was at a low spot mentally and just didn't feel good.
So have you always been, you know, I want to talk about the two things here. You know, one is your entrepreneurial spirit and your, you know, finances. That's a lot of people struggle with, right? And then you're running that Chase told me about, which is crazy. You haven't started that yet, right? The actual competition where you're going to try to break the record?
No, that starts March 23rd. But I've ran a minimum of 10 miles a day every day for like almost 415 days straight or something like that.
Are you going for 1,000 days straight?
What's the record?
The world record?
Yeah,
is a year. I originally set a goal to do 1,000 2-a-days in a row, which I did, but it was September 28th, 2024, and the end of the year was just right there, so I extended it to 3 years. And then towards the end of 2024, so just in December, I was like, okay, now what? Am I going to go back to regular life or like? But once you expand yourself and you see what you're capable of, if you go back to what was, there's no way that you could live with yourself anymore and have a high sense of self-worth. If you've seen what you're capable of, there's really
You're not
no
living up to it.
There's no
sense.
going back from that, really, right?
That makes
You
sense.
would know as a man that you're living a less than life and that you're not honoring your full potential if you've seen it and then you back away from it.
You know you're capable.
If you know what you're capable of, right? And so for me, I can't do it. And so it was like I didn't know what was going to be next. And it was literally, I was running and it was December and it's towards the end of the year. And all of a sudden, I call it a download, not a thought, because usually when you have a download of like, I should try to do this, I should start that business, or I should do this challenge, that's a download. Like when something that is like saying, go do something great. And then the first thought after a download's like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
No
the
way.
self-doubt.
Yeah. Like, dude, there's no way you could do that.
Right.
So that's why I separate it as a download versus a thought, because I believe that the first thought that you have after you think about doing something amazing or have a download that just hits you out of nowhere of like, dude, you should try this, is usually doubt, because what it's doing is it's using everything that you've ever done. In other words, it takes the record of the past and says, well, that's not you. But the download was saying you should do something that's greater than the current version of you. So of course the initial thought is like, that's not you, because it's only has the old version of you to look at data about, right?
I got you.
And so
that's an interesting battle.
Yeah, it is.
And then, like you said, the download can rewrite the doubt, because it knows that I got through this, and now I'm.
I believe all you have to do is honor what you're currently capable of, and you honor it at that threshold for an extended period of time, and then your capabilities then expand. And as long as you're continuing to honor what you're capable of, again, the threshold is going to keep getting greater and greater. So you honoring it's going to look different every single time, right? But you will then expand your capabilities as long as you honor your capabilities. And then you end up becoming so capable and become an individual that you didn't even think was possible at one point in a few short years. And so,
well, you did.
Yeah.
I think most people lose that battle. I think most people let the doubt, wins.
That's because they could deal with depression better than me.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's interesting
that feeling of being at a low spot, I would rather go through the pain and discomfort of honoring my capabilities for a few short hours every day and feeling good in my body and mind than living with a dull depression for 24 hours a day. So there's one thing that's greater than the other, right? And so it's like, I watched this guy run past me one time and I was like, oh, that hurts, or whatever. This guy's faster than me, you know? And as I was running and I finally got home and I was like, yeah, I mean, it hurt, but not that bad. Not bad enough to do something about it. Yeah. Not bad enough to go run sprints. Right? Like you're not depressed. It's not so bad that you're willing to do something different. Your finances aren't so bad that you're willing to do something. You're tolerating one or the other, right?
Right.
And so it's like, for me, I just can't live with myself. This version of me over here, I couldn't do it. And so to say that most people lose the battle is maybe they could deal with a different suffering better than I can.
And I think maybe they didn't realize that the point you're making, they didn't realize if they push through, then it's better. I think a lot of people when they get that doubt, they think people hate change.
Yeah.
People hate anything different. And it's like, well, hey man, maybe on the other side of that is change from you being depressed. Try it. You got nothing to lose. If you're just depressed and you're sad, try it.
Yeah, your actions are weaving a certain pattern.
Yeah.
In other words, your life, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't really like it, are you willing to reweave it? And reweaving it means creating a completely new pattern, right? Which is change.
Yeah.
And so
it's like that guy you were talking about before we started the podcast.
Yeah. He went back to his old pattern, right?
Yeah.
He tried to reweave it, but it was like, dude,
and like you said, can't do it for you.
You don't like being overweight, yeah.
But not enough to not enough yet. He hasn't hit that point.
Not enough to keep going through the discomfort to change it.
See, and that's where I think you're different. Just talking to you here shortly, it's like that's where you're different, than most people, and you know that.
I think I'm far more logical. I think it's a thought process, and I think that I'm not an emotional being. I'm really not that. Like, that's my wife's biggest complaint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that I'm not the most cuddly or emotional or,
me too.
you know,
Black and
vulnerable
white.
and this.
Numbers.
Yeah, you know.
Stats.
Yeah, like that's the thing. And the average person is very in their feelings, right? This doesn't feel good. So they honor their emotions during the process of whatever it is that they're doing. Oh, man, getting up. I don't really feel like getting up. So they honor it. So they just don't get up, right? I don't feel like eating healthy, you know, anymore. So they honor it. Or I don't feel like working out today, or whatever it is. They're so in their feelings. And feelings are just so up and down and so undependable, right? That they end up living this life that's creating a very undependable outcome,
right?
Which then causes depression and mental health issues and lack of self-worth and, you know, all this stuff, right? And so for me, I'm just so logical and so not in my emotions of like, dude, I want that outcome. And I don't care what it is that I have to go through to receive it. I will go through whatever. Like, I think more people need to start analyzing the commonalities with people doing great things and not the differences, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not that guy. He's this, and they start labeling the differences, what makes them different. Okay, well, why don't you start with the commonalities? And then there's a gap, obviously.
But it's closer.
It's closer, but then your work, your actions can close the gap after that.
Right.
He's a man. I'm a man. I'm disciplined. He's disciplined. I'm
got
willing
the same
to go through
shoes.
discomfort. Yeah, like I take a shit. He takes a shit. You know, whatever it is. Like, there's commonalities that we all have as human beings. We start there and then be like, okay, they're way out there. What actions would I need to take to close that gap? Right. And so for me, what it was is I saw a clip of David Goggins on Joe Rogan podcast, and he said, well, what's your easy day or whatever? And he says, well, my light day or my easy day is I start with 7 miles. I do 7 miles and then I do a workout. And so for me, it was like, boom, there's my marker. I need to get to the point where I'm doing at least 7 miles a day. Now I'm playing at the same park as him. Maybe he's on the swing set and I'm on the monkey bars, but we're in the same vicinity.
We're in the same room.
We're near each other now. I now know that I'm operating at his easy day. Even if that's my hard day, we're still there. The lines are starting to come together a little bit. I closed the gap.
Catching him.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did is I started looking at these people that I admired and said, okay, what are our commonalities and what do I need to do to close the gap? And then at that point, I got so sick of just looking at people on social media and watching other people live out a great life and be extraordinary and me get a dopamine hit off of like, yeah. Like you get out of a Rocky movie or something and think you're a professional boxer or something. You know, you get a dopamine hit like you're going to fight somebody at the parking lot. Yeah. That ain't true. You're still the same old dude that walked in. You're just riding a high. You're riding a dopamine hit, right? And I got so sick of watching these other people and feeling a certain way about them of like, wow, you know, this is extraordinary. I think that you get that feeling is because you're watching greatness and there's that in you, right? I believe that it's in everybody. And like the reason why we admire it is because the gap of what they were willing to go through to get it and where you're at right now, you just know you're not willing to go through that. So that creates a level of admiration, right? And for me, I just decided like, I don't care what it is that I have to go through. I'm going to close that gap because
I can.
I believe that it's possible. Like I started asking, why not you? Why, like what he used to be 300 pounds and he was overweight. He was this. He made the decision.
That was Goggins, right?
Yeah,
he was over.
He made the decision.
Was he?
Yeah, he made the decision to change.
Well, and I think it's a lot
know?
like you were saying, you know, about bow hunting. I'm like, hey man, you want to try it? I want to get into it, and you're like, I know my lane. I think I'm not very good at that. You know, I'm always one of those guys like, I'll try that. I'll do that. I'll do that. You know, I think it's commendable where you're like, no, man, this is where I'm going. This is what I do. A lot of people don't come in here or come into a conversation saying, I don't hang out with the boys. I don't, you know, this is my life. This is where I'm at. I've got my land, my family, my wife, and this is where I live, and this is what I'm happy with. Most people can't say that.
I'm fearful if I don't put those guardrails in.
Yeah.
That I would deviate or go back, you know, and I'm so scared of that.
Which I think is healthy for people. We were talking on that last podcast. He was asking me some questions about finances, you know, and he says, "What's your advice?" And I says, "Most people just think they want money, but they don't know what they want it for, what they're going to use it for." And it's like with you, I can see with your personality, it's like you said, "This is who I am. This is where I live. This is what I like." And I think most people don't think that way. They don't sit down.
Build structure.
Yeah, and they don't sit down and be like, "What am I doing?" I can tell that you've had a lot of deep thoughts about who you are, what you want to do, what you want to be. And I encourage people with that. You know, most people are just like, "I want more money. I want this. I want that." And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Because money, like you said, money does not correlate. And I said that on the last podcast. It can give you some freedom and like you said, distractions. But until you find your purpose and your drive that is bigger than money or anything like that. And so I think it's really cool that you're able to, you know, that's actually something good for me to hear where it's like, you know, because I struggle with it. I do a lot of reflection, a lot of reading and a lot of things like that. But at the same time, it's funny because I'll sit down and like I have some property out in Apple Valley.
Oh, cool.
And I'll show you, it's pretty crazy, but I'm looking at property in,
Texas you're talking about that one house up on the hill? That
have you seen it?
Design,
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he said, that does look really cool.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at property in Texas right now, high fence. And my wife's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just think it'd kind of be fun, you know, to have that." But it's like, but I sit there and I'm like, "Is that what I want?" Do you ever struggle with that where is it always clear to you or do you struggle with?
It's not always clear.
It's
not always clear.
How do you get to that answer?
It's never going to be clear.
That's what I think. How did you get to where I want to run a half a marathon a day? Like, how did you figure out that was going to be
the next thing or whatever? Like, and that's
your purpose.
That's it.
Because you're like, I'm not going to go hunt.
Yeah, I'm not
going to
do
run.
Nothing. I don't care to travel. I don't care to do any of that because it's all a distraction based upon the one thing that I'm trying to accomplish right now, which is become one of one, right? And put myself in the Guinness Book of World Record. But no, man, I mean, there's been plenty of days where I'm just like running. I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. Like, I've got money and my house is paid off and, you know, I do okay financially. And I go back to like what I said earlier in terms of not honoring my emotions. My mind immediately goes back to, well, you started it for a reason. You wouldn't be out here doing this right now if you weren't at a spot that you were trying to get away from at one point. So don't allow this temporary feeling or emotion to deter you from honoring what you said that you were going to do when you did have a clear mind and you set out to accomplish something greater than the old version of you could ever even comprehend. Right? So then I go back to my logic and be like, dude, no, this will be over too. In a matter of an hour or two, you're going to be in the shower, and this day you're going to be able to put it behind you in terms of, you know, dude, I ran in the snow, 26 mile an hour winds, the rain. I've thrown up on the side of the road, body aches, headaches.
Let's talk about that real quick. So, because we keep dancing around it, what are you going to do? What's your goal?
To
run the most, is it half marathons?
Most consecutive half marathons in a row.
So
which
what's
right
that?
now
13 miles?
13.1 miles a day, and right now it's 235 days. When I saw that, I was actually really surprised. It was low.
Yeah, that's
very low.
I was like, haven't you already done that? Like technically,
last year in 2024, I averaged like 11. I did 4,015 miles in the year, and I averaged 11 miles a day.
Yeah,
right.
Just kind of doing it. Not even,
Wow. So
you're going to go 300. You're trying to go 1 year.
1 year. I mean, originally when I told my wife that I wanted to break a world record, I told her that I'd probably have to do it for 1,000 days because I hadn't looked it up yet.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it's got to be 1,000.
It's got to be a lot more than a year. I mean, a year don't seem like much.
That's
you know, it just kind of comes and go. I mean, a year goes by so fast, man. And so that's what I'm saying. We can't get caught up in our emotions and stuff when we're in the valley of just the grind of doing what we're trying to accomplish. It's such a short time.
How long does that take you a day to run 13 miles?
I'm not up there yet. I mean, today I ran 11 miles and it took me an hour and 47 minutes.
Couple hours.
Yeah.
Are
So
you like 5 minutes? Like 6 minutes? What is that, a mile? 8 minutes?
No, I ain't. That's like,
it's like sprinting.
Olympic.
Like they said, but they used to say that a 4-minute mile wasn't possible. I remember that back in the day. And then somebody did it.
Yeah, that's
you
like,
know what I mean?
it's 9 minutes. It was like 9 minutes and 40 seconds.
Your
I mean,
average?
is what it was today. I mean, it depends on the day.
Right.
Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it raining? Is it snowing? How much sleep did I get? What did I eat the day before?
Right.
I mean, there's so many variables. Did I hit legs at the gym the day before? Did I do, you know, I mean, it's all there's so many variables. And before, you don't ever think about stuff like that.
Getting sick. You know, that's the other thing. Like,
you
if you get the flu, you got to run.
Yeah. But I just tell myself, it's like,
you're injured.
Again, that's just temporary. I've hobbled, you know, with shin splints and Achilles stuff. And then there was one day that I put my legs in an ice bath 5 times that day just to try to kill the pain and recover. You know, I've got pictures in my phone of blisters across all my toes. Because when you're first setting out to do something and your body's not used to it, there's an adaptation period. And usually when you're adapting to something, it's not pretty, right? And so for me, what I did is logically, like I said, I'm kind of a logical guy and not getting too in my feelings or my pain. I would look at my toes and say, okay, well, what comes after a blister?
Callus.
A callus. And I would tell myself, that's what's happening in your mind right now. That's what's happening mentally right now.
Yeah, cool.
I know that you don't want to go out and do this because your mind has blisters. But if you go out and do it, you're going to callous your mind eventually.
That's cool. I like that.
And so I would try to play mind tricks, on myself. And like, I would try to, the secret really is how can you turn something that appears to be negative into something positive.
Yeah.
So when I would look at the blisters were a good thing because right after that comes a callus. The blisters were a good thing because my mind was now getting harder, right? Like, so I would turn whatever most people would use as an excuse not to do something as the reason why I should. So I would try to spin it on itself, right?
Well, and we were talking in the last podcast where I was telling him how with finances, he was saying, you know, how did you? Because I lost everything in the recession. I was homeless. I lost everything, like homeless with my wife and child. It was a pretty bad deal. And I was pawning TVs to get food. And it was pretty rough. And so when I came back out of it, it's like I had the big truck and the big house and all this fun stuff, but it was all financed, right? It was all bullshit.
You're what I warn people about on my podcast.
100%.
I'm like, bro, when you're making it, stack it, you know.
100%, bro.
Delay another 3 to 5 years before you reward yourself.
Yep. And that's what I did. Yeah. So I lost everything, best and worst thing that ever happened to me.
Of course.
Dug out of it. And then started buying.
Well, it's the best thing because what you did with it.
Yeah.
It could have been the worst thing and
100%,
stayed the worst thing because there's some victim right now in 2025 that had that same story, right? And now it's 17 years later and they're telling people about the recession of 2008 that took them out.
It's not my fault.
You know,
it's the recession.
This situation or circumstance that was outside of me, right?
100%.
Well, I guess, it's crazy.
And so I went through that. And then when I came out the other side, I was like, listen, you know, I'm not good with money. You know, like I like fancy things. I still do, you know.
It's becoming more self-aware.
Yeah. And it's like, but I avoid it. You know, I'm like, I was telling these guys when I started getting a little bit of cash, I was afraid of banks because they annihilated me, you know, my fault, but they did and they should have.
Yeah.
And
you set yourself up for that one.
100%. Yeah. So I had like 25 grand cash under my mattress. And I would drive home, and all of a sudden one day I'm driving home, and there's a Jeep for sale for like $7,500, you know, a little CJ5 or 7, and I'm like, I pull over and look at it, and I'm like, man, I could buy that. That'd be cool, you know. And I'm like, no. And so what I had to do was I started driving longer home to go around it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what you're saying. It's like find what is in your personality or in your you know strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. And then build on the strengths and you know try to lessen the weaknesses.
Your guardrails and and double down on the good stuff. Yeah. Well, it was there was a guy, you know, in a mastermind that I'm in, he said this. He's like, man, when what was it? I don't know if it was it was Krispy Kreme. He said when those guys put their light on that said fresh out of the oven or something like that, and I would drive by it, I'd pull in every single time and I got overweight. And I just had to start driving a different route home because when I saw that sign, it just pulled me
Dinner
in.
bell.
You know what I mean? So, but if you don't see it, then it's not even. It's like, oh, I'm going to go this way. I don't know if they have fresh donuts right now or not. And so it's the same concept. Is just know yourself well enough and create the boundaries that allow you to, or minimize, I guess, not allow you, but to minimize the probability of you making bad decisions. Because you know where you falter. Everybody knows where they falter. For me, it was like I started seeing a pattern of like when I got off of drugs, I started to abuse alcohol, and I ended up, with DUI after DUI after DUI. And I started to see a pattern. Okay, when I would go out and hang out with groups of people, large groups of people, we'd go to bars or whatever, and we would drink. Everything happened that was bad always happened after like 10 or 11 p.m. at night around groups of people with alcohol. And so I had to say, okay, I'm not going to go out anymore, hang out with groups of people and be involved in alcohol, because I would get in fights, I would go to jail, I would get DUI. Everything that's been bad those were the commonalities. That was a thread of like, oh, this, and this. It was like the domino effect. It's like, okay, go out, people, look around, something bad's going to happen, right? And so it was like, I put my guardrails and just said, like, I don't kick it. I don't hang out. I don't, like, I'm just so, I'm more focused than I've ever been. And what's crazy is like, I don't have to be, but it's like I now get high off of self-improvement. I get a high off of that. And at first, it sucked, and I had to keep telling myself to keep showing up. And I think people get obsessed after they bear the brunt of going through the process of their mind turning on them while they're doing the thing long enough to actually see the results. When you do that and you honor that process and you bear what you have to bear as you're going through the process of change, and you start seeing the result, then you start getting obsessed. You're like, holy cow, that created that. So I want more of this. And so now I get high off of this because I know what it's going to bring me. Right. And so again, it's turning the negative into positive. This is what I get high off of now. I don't even care about the result. Keep me in the freaking processor. Process me. Make me better.
It's like it's like me with money. So when I lost everything and I started getting it back, my lifestyle changed, right? I'm driving a shitty truck,
That's what it's about right there.
Yeah, and I'm going through all that stuff, and I'm struggling. But when I came out the other side, it was funny because in the beginning I'm trying to show,
Everybody I'm not gonna say that you made it, look at me, look at me.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's like, look at my big truck, but it's financed. Look at my big house, it's financed. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
And then All right, guys, let's step away from this conversation real quick and talk about a few things we have going on with M42 Adventures. First off, it's the new year. Everybody's got big goals, big plans, and one way that I think helps people to achieve those goals is through mentors and accountability. So we have our online community called The Genesis, and we just announced a few weeks ago that it is going to be free for at least the first 6 months of 2025. So if you're interested in coming in, joining these like-minded people, we have just under 100 people in there now. We have 7 mentors teaching everything from finance, self-help, spirituality, self-defense. There's just so many in there. Firearms, all these
relationships.
Relationships. Yep, all these different things. So if you're interested in that, go to m42adventures.com and sign up. Again, it is free. You don't have to enter your credit card. There's no strings attached. Check it out. Second, we have a big giveaway that we're going to be launching here in the next week or two. You do have to be a member of the Genesis to win that. Again, no purchase necessary, but that's going to be amazing. We're going to get that up pretty quick here. So keep following us. Continue to pay attention to that. And then we also have our expenses for this year. We have sold out most of them. We have Africa, some spots left for South Africa still, and we have some spots left for Hawaii. So if you're interested in either one of those, again, get inside the Genesis. That's where all things are happening. I can't tell you enough about it. Get in there, sign up, and then we can talk personally. So that's it. Let's get back to this conversation. Yeah. And then I remember I was actually in Vegas with a group of friends, and this was probably like 3 years into it, and I had like $100,000 in the bank, something like that, which I'd never had $100,000 in the bank ever in my life. But I was quiet about it. I lived in I still drove a shitty truck, and I still didn't go out to eat and all the things. And one of my buddies grabbed my bank statement out of the ATM, the receipt, and he's like, "Whoa, Rick, you have money?" And I'm like, "A little bit." And he's like, "Dude, we all thought you were poor. We thought you had money 3 years ago, but we thought you were poor now." And I'm like, "Dude, I have a lot more money now than I had then."
Yeah.
But it was funny because
that's the outer appearance.
Yeah.
We're judging it based upon that.
Yeah. I think that happens so much with us. But yeah, it's very interesting to hear how I like how you said guardrails. That reminded me of, I went to college with these guys from Snow Canyon, and they were very religious, and I wasn't.
Me neither.
Yeah, I was raised in it, but kind of fell away.
Yeah.
But I talked to my mom, and I says, "Hey, I need some roommates." I was 20 years old. I was going up to the University of Utah, and she was a teacher out there at Snow Canyon. And she says, "I know these boys that are moving up there. Let me see if they need a roommate." Anyway, I ended up moving in with them. Studs, just good dudes, just good people. And we'd always go out, partying, go to Bricks or whatever it was in Salt Lake, all those clubs. And they never drank. They never did anything bad with girls. And I drank and some stuff with girls. But I remember talking to them at night sometimes, and I'd be like, "Why don't you guys drink? Why don't you drink?" And they're like, "Why don't you do heroin?" I'm like, "Oh, because I don't want to do heroin. I'm afraid of it. I just don't want to do heroin." They're like, "Well, you set your line here. We set ours here." I'm like, "That's just where we just don't cross that line."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're like, "You don't cross that one. Why don't you cross it and go, do all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's interesting." And so I like how you're saying guardrails. I like that analogy where it's like, you just set what you're willing to do and what you're willing to, and then I think that's been a big part of my life, is where I've gotten where I am today, is like I told you about the story with my friends that we ran around together with.
Yeah.
We never saw each other. I don't ever remember meeting you in the past, but
no,
ran around in the same circles. But, I knew for me to get where I wanted to be, I couldn't be in that house with those guys. And so I says, well, I'm going to move that guardrail, and I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to take off on this off ramp, and they're going to continue down the road, and I wish them the best. But I think more people that are going, if you've got it all, figured out, good for you.
Everybody knows where they're making bad decisions.
100%.
Everybody
does.
And
if you do, it's like you don't have to change everything, but just tweak it.
Yeah.
Just tweak it a little bit, Yeah. And it can be a huge gain.
What I like to so I'll bring the two couple stories together. I talked about the blisters and, what appears to be negative and trying to use it as a positive thing. And then you went and talked about, hey, I drove the shitty car. So on the outer surface, the appearance looked negative. He's driving a shitty car. He's this and that or whatever. But it was really actually positive because you were able to put money away. Right.
And it became my identity. It was funny because in the beginning, like you're saying, it was hard.
You became the cheap guy, but the whole time you're over here stacking cash and
and then I tell people, I tell them, that became my mantra.
Yeah.
Like people, I to this day, I could buy most things that I want.
I still live by that same principle, dude.
Yeah, people are like, you live in that house. I get that a lot. Have you been in my house?
Yeah, of course. I put up your blinds.
Yeah, it's a little house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I live in a little house.
Dude, people come over and they're like, "This is your house? I thought it would be bigger." And I'm like, no, I'm leaving on March 4th to go travel for 2 years. Peace.
Yeah.
And so there's two things with that. Is one, it's like I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. I don't care what you guys think about me. I'm living my life. And the biggest thing too, a big thing for me, and you probably felt this, was when I lost everything in the recession, and I'm sitting there in the basement of my grandparents' house, literally homeless and broken down. It's like, who's in this room with me? It's not my buddies. It's not my, friends. It was my wife and my son and my grandparents. And it's like, okay, these are my people. These are who I'm doing this for, but like you said, it becomes the hard and the sacrifice becomes easier. And I'm sure you got this a lot too, where you'll read business books or self-help books. I read them 20 years ago and I'm like, holy cow, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm going to get there, you know, someday. And now I read them and I'm like, oh, sweet. Did it. Awesome. You know, and it's like, wow, what a cool thing. And like you said, then you can talk to people and say, listen, man, the big truck and then a fancy car and stuff like that, that's temporary. You know, this is, and I like how you said as well, where, you know, you're finding something beyond the money, beyond the you know, financial world. You know, I think that's fleeting, right?
Financial success, yeah. Which I mean, again, like I can't talk shit on it, because I still do value that. It's just not the priority, right?
It gives you it gives you the priority.
It's done a lot of things for me and my family to give security and all of that, but you know, the truck that I have out there is a 2018, you know, GMC Denali with, you know, 106,000 miles on it. My wife drives a van, 2015 van with 175,000 miles on it. But, you know, I live in a house at 7 figures that's smaller in size, but has a ton of land.
Yeah.
Because I valued my kids growing up on land. And so it's like, okay, I could buy these big houses and this and live in the neighborhoods that everybody else lives in that, you know, all have, you know, $150,000. That van gets us from spot to spot. My truck gets me from spot to spot. The funny thing is, you know, I drive around town and everybody's got the nicest, fanciest, newest 6-figure, you know, vehicle. And I'm just like, man, that's a $1,500 a month payment. That's kind of a waste. Now,
those aren't assets.
They're not assets, you know.
And they probably come out to your farm and they're like, dude, this is insane. This is cool. I want this. And it's like,
yeah.
Then sell your shit.
Well, they won't. They won't.
Because
bro, the year I made 1.6 mil, I was still living in a house I bought for $252,000.
Yeah.
My payment on it was $1,400 a month, and I was making 6 figures a month. Right. And initially, when I first started making money, I was making $120,000 a year as a sales guy. I found the cheapest townhouse I could. It was $750 a month, and drove a $3,000 Mitsubishi Lancer, just piece of shit. Stayed there, got enough money to buy the $252,000. Stayed in that house for 12 years while I had 7 figures in the bank. And then I paid my house off that I live in now that was they were selling it for 1.5, and I said, I'll pay you 1.2 cash. I got a 20% discount because I paid cash for it, right? And so it's like...
So you never fell into the trap of...
I never did.
See,
never.
That's awesome.
Never.
That's cool, because I did.
Because I literally grew up poor, and I said, I'm playing this game for one reason.
Yeah. Freedom.
For real financial security.
Yeah, me too.
And if anything outside of that gets inside the guardrails, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Like, dude, that's really what it was, man. Yeah. It was like, dude, I'm not going to drive fancy cars. I'm not going to live in every time I have the opportunity to upgrade, I'm not going to do it. I'm a huge believer in delayed gratification, a huge believer in it, right? A lot of the times we make purchases based upon us being at a low spot and we want to feel like, you know, where like you hurting financially, but you saw that Jeep. It's almost like a form of like, hey, I'm still in control.
It is 100%.
Like, yeah, my situation's bad,
hit.
but I'm still in control of my No, things were spiraling, 100%. Right? You know, you're not in control.
You're filling a void.
You want to feel in control by making a purchase that puts you in a worse situation, right? And so, no, I never fell down that trap, but I was dead set on, because I grew up with so much uncertainty, and I watched, you know, family members that had made a lot of money that then ended up going broke when I was young, kind of people that uncles that I looked up to, things like that or whatever. I was like, man, I might only have a window of opportunity for a small period of time to make the money that I'm making. Like, who am I to believe that, you know, maybe it's a fear thing, not an abundance mindset or whatever, but I'm just like, before I reward myself, I'm going to make sure that my family is good. Yeah. Like, if I get hit by a bus, they're good regardless. Like, the house is paid for, there's money coming in, life insurance. After that, I can enjoy myself, right? Yeah. Like, and so, but even now, it's like, I have goals of, you know, now, you know, paying off my mom's house and taking care of like, that's now more important than taking care of me in terms of like the sports car or this. Like,
well, you found something else to fulfill yourself.
Yeah, it's more, something outside of money, right? Like, me just becoming the best version of me makes me happy and gives me fulfillment, knowing that I'm just honoring what I'm capable of, right? Like, I mean, I think, you know, if you have kids and stuff, you look at your child and you're like, man, I really want you. You're so capable. You're this, you're that. You know, imagine being God and giving somebody all of these abilities, and the only tool that they need to extract those abilities is just a little bit of logic and a little bit of work ethic,
self-control,
and you know, and you could extract it, right? But yet they choose not to.
Yeah.
You know, that would be tough.
And that's you know, the American system, right? Is buy it now, sign your. It's funny because when I bought my first condo out here at Green Valley, I went to buy it, and it was that actually the second one. First one was a hard money loan that I gave from anyway. But the second one I bought, I went up and owner financed it and gave him 20% down. You know, whatever. And by the fourth one or fifth one, I paid cash. I started paying cash for them, and it was 1,000 times harder to go write a check for those condos than it was for me to owner finance them. And I'm like, that is hilarious. Like,
even though
I have the money,
outcome's going to be,
I have the money, I can pay for it. You know, and
you're going to miss out on that percentage rate. That's just
but we've been
away.
so trained that it's like, sign your name. You know, I remember going in to buy a truck, my Dodge, and I'm like, how much is it? And they're like, it's $400 a month or $700 a month. And I'm like, but how much is the truck? And they're like, how much can you afford? And I'm like, what is happening?
You're like, tell me the price.
This is before I lost everything. And I'm like, how much is the truck? And he's like, what do you need it to be? And I'm like, what the freak are you talking about? And he's like, can you not afford $700 a month? Do you want me to go to 8 years financing? And I remember getting frustrated with him. And I'm like, how much is the truck?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you mean the total price? He's like, it's $60,000. He's like, I thought you meant, nobody ever asked how much the truck is. They ask how much their payment is. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And back then I'm like, oh yeah, I can afford $718 a month, you know, and I could for a minute. And then as soon as that faucet turned off, I lost it. But that's what I tell people now. It's like, man, you know, I have a financial mentor, and he says there's two types of people in life: those who pay interest and those who charge it. That's what the whole world boils down to, you know. And it's like, if you can become the latter, whatever, whichever way I said it, but it's like, man, so many people, we're such a immediate gratification.
Yeah.
And but what's interesting with you is you've struggled with addiction. So you've struggled with immediate gratification and that type of thing, right? So how did you get out of that? How do you get out of addiction? What was that moment? Where did you
I haven't got out of addiction. I'm just addicted to different things, right?
That's what Woody says.
That's how I am.
I mean, it's just you know, I mean, it's
running's your addiction.
That's why you have to have
business.
guardrails. If you're, you know, I was on a podcast probably a year ago or something, and I said, man, like, I don't, you know, I was the lowest of low lives. I was literally the junkie that junkies would look at and make themselves feel good that they weren't as bad as Trevor, right? So I helped justify their addiction because they weren't at least
you were that bad,
that guy,
wow,
you know, or whatever, right? And so I said, man, there's like, I do things to the extreme. When I was a junkie, I was
the best junkie of the year,
the junkiest of all junkies,
world record holder.
Yeah. If there was one, it would have been me, you know. And you know, when I chewed tobacco, you know, I would chew a can a day every day. When I drank, I would black out, you know, 3 to 5 times a week. Like, I don't have a gear that's like third gear, right? It's just like, go, you know, it's all out or not at all, right? But it's, in reality, I don't believe a not at all. I believe it is all out, and it's just, where am I focusing my attention and that addictive personality? Am I starting multiple businesses, right? Is it, you know, the 1,000 2-a-day challenge that turned into 3 years? Is it running 10 miles every day for all of 2024? Is it the Guinness Book? Or like, I don't know how to play the middle ground, which, you know, I don't. Some people might look at that and be like, oh wow, that's cool, you know, like, to be quite honest with you, sometimes I get a little jealous that some people have like an off switch.
Oh, I tell my wife that all the time.
You know, where they could just chill.
Yeah. I tell her all the time.
know?
I'm like, I go, and then she'll get upset about it. You know, like that I go to like travel. It's like I couldn't go travel for a month or two. It's like I have to
go for years at a time and jump around 70
So I probably have it
countries,
too. I've never thought about it. I've never had an addictive one with
Oh,
substances.
you're an addict.
I must be.
And you're also very sporadic.
Yeah.
You know, like you're very whimsical in that way, but you have the capabilities to do it, so it's all right in your personality. But if you didn't, it could be a downfall for sure.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of shit.
A lot of death.
A lot of death hanging on your wall.
You might be addicted to death. You might be a serial killer.
You know what I mean? So to me, I can look around and just be like, okay, well, you have some sort of addiction to hunting, or else you wouldn't have all these animals on the wall, right? You have an addiction to traveling. You have an addiction to change, right? For you, staying the same in terms of the same environment that drives you crazy. So you're addicted. You're just addicted to different things.
That's a good point.
What's the difference of somebody being addicted to alcohol versus addicted to heroin? They're both addicts. They just have different. They're showing up in different forms.
Well, they're so similar too. I learned something one time, after I got sober and I was watching The Gambler, and I was like evaluating that whole entire procedure that he would go through and how the addiction was really losing. Like they're
The
more
Gambler,
addicted to losing
the
than
movie?
winning. Yeah.
Is that with
I've never
Kenny
seen it.
Rogers?
Mark
or-
Wahlberg.
I haven't
And
seen it.
but this whole process goes through it, and I really evaluated my own addiction towards like what he was going through. And it's like, I think after a while, you're almost addicted to like the aspect of like failing, like of not being able to hold on, or like, when it comes to gambling, he kind of explained it as an aspect of, you become addicted to, I don't know if you've ever gambled and won a lot of money, but there's a feeling that comes from that. And I don't know if you've ever gambled and lost a bunch of money.
Not much. I don't gamble.
It feels worse, but better to lose. Like, it's such an extreme thing for you to go through, like that pain and that loss and that grief, that it creates an aspect in you that's better than the reward. And it's very complicated, and it happened in my drinking, but I was really bad. I drink like a half gallon of vodka a day, and function, and then black out at the end of the night. And that was every night, 7 days a week for, almost a decade.
Wow.
And so I lived through that, and much like you, grand scheme of things, he lived through that addiction where he was pushing his limits every single day. And it's a very interesting concept, because that same addiction you're addicted to, but you're addicted to it in a different way. You're still pushing your limits every single day, but you're not doing with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
You're striving to see what you're really made of. And I did the same thing. Every single substance I ever took, I used to do something I called the tumbleweed, where I would just take everything that I had, and see where it took me. And I called it the tumbleweed because you didn't really have control of what was happening, and I was addicted to being out of control. That was...
It's a good name for it.
Yeah,
yes.
because the wind's just blowing you along and you're just whatever. But that whole aspect, I was addicted to being out of control, not being able to actually function, and I look back at it and I'm like, I missed out on so many things. I pushed those boundaries and those limits, and I became somebody that, ultimately, like, as long as you're not that guy, like, as long as you're not the drunk person over there, passed out in the front of the bar, it's just, I got addicted to that process almost,
It's funny because I've never really thought about it as an addiction, but like we've been home for a year, right? Almost, just barely over a year. And I go crazy. I'm like, I am so sick of driving the same road and seeing the same grocery store. And it's, funny. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
But I've never thought of it as an addiction. I've just thought I like traveling. But it's like,
we're all addicted to something.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Every human being is addicted to some people are addicted to food. That's why they're overweight. Some people are addicted to video games. Everyone seems to be addicted to their phones. Some people are addicted. So like people will judge an overweight person, but then they're also the same person that's addicted to going to the gym. They would feel like shit if they didn't show up to the gym that day. They're addicted to what the gym does for them, just like the other person that's overweight is addicted to what the food does for them temporarily while they're eating it. So I believe that human beings, we are creatures of habit. In other words, we find our addictions, just like your animals up here. They're creatures of habit. They would walk the same paths, and you would go study them before hunting season, and you would know what their habits are, and that's going to give you the highest probability of success of killing one of them. It's the same thing. You could watch any one of us human beings, and you'll watch their patterns. 95% of what they do every day is the exact same thing as the day before, but yet everybody lives with a feeling of hope, right? Like, man, I have a lot of hope for the future. My future's going to be better. It's brighter and this, but yet they're weaving the same pattern every single day over and over and over. And the question is it the pattern that's going to create, it's called becoming a student of inevitability, right? So like, if I light the, firecracker and it's got this long fuse, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science. Inevitably, it's going to get to that and pop, right? Like, we know that, right? So what does your fuse look like over the next, 3 to 5 years? What is inevitable if you keep showing up the same way that you're showing up? Whether that's being addicted to food or video games or social media, or maybe starting businesses, or maybe it is your physical health, or, hunting or running or this or that, or, that's really the question that people need to ask themselves, because, I never thought I was an addict. Yeah, you are, I am, he is, everybody is. Everybody has their guilty pleasures, right? They go through the little soda shop line and get their dirty Dr. Pepper or whatever, or their Starbucks every single morning. They go through their routine. Yeah. In other words, that's what they're addicted to. That's what made them feel best at one point, and now they just stay stuck in that, regardless of whether it serves them or not.
Yeah.
So
I have a buddy who went through a divorce because he went to the gym too much.
That's just weird.
Yeah, but it was like
he's saying, addicted to it.
It was 4 hours a day, and she's like, we have 2 kids together. Twins.
What's his first name?
Brian.
Oh no.
Yeah, and
wait. What's his last name?
I'm not saying that. But it's like,
edit that out. Tell me his last name.
Yeah,
and then we'll just.
I'll tell you after. I'll tell you after.
Yeah.
But
I might know who he is.
But it's like it's just a bad deal where it's like, man, that can be.
It's a strain.
Yeah.
It's a strain. I know my wife and is making sacrifices.
I kind of wondered that
for me doing what I'm doing.
Well, a couple hours a day. I mean, that's faster than I would have thought. I was thinking, you're running for 6 hours a day.
No.
I didn't realize you could run 11 miles.
You usually
that's like Virgin to town, isn't it? What's
don't you
11
do the
miles?
loop?
What's the
usually?
loop?
What loop?
Don't you go up Smith Mesa and come back down?
Oh no.
I swear I've seen you run that.
That's 26 miles, bro.
It is.
Yeah,
okay.
What's Virgin to what's like Virgin to Rockville?
That's I don't know what it is in miles.
Well, Virgin to Springdale is 13 miles.
Yeah, there you go.
Because they've done the Zion half marathon, and they start in Virgin, and it ends at the exact mouth of where Zion is. So
okay.
That is crazy. That is crazy. I didn't think you could run that in a couple hours. I would have thought 4.
Well, that's what I mean.
It depends. Some people can do it way fast.
When I go run, if I go run 5 miles, if I average 8-9 minutes, I'm really stoked with myself.
You're what?
Really stoked with myself.
That's really good.
And so I try and keep that kind of pace, but I've never done anything 10 miles at that pace.
Well, I don't. For me, dude, here's the thing: is I'm the most average of average human beings that ever existed on the planet.
Did you run before this? Did you ever? Never ran.
No. He's like, I didn't enjoy doing anything like that.
No, I mean, I was 36 years old. It was 39 days before my 37th birthday, and I was at a low spot. It was, like I said, I made a lot of money that year, right? And I was like, man, call it a midlife crisis or whatever, right? I think everybody goes through that in their mid or late 30s or whatever. I was like, man, am I doing life right? Am I that, I need to reevaluate things. Why I'm at a low spot? Even if things are going good, you'll probably, I believe everybody has a version of themselves that can get them to a certain spot in life, and then they have to kill off that version and recreate, right? We have to do that, I believe, every 10 or 15 years. We just reinvent ourselves, right?
I'm really curious where do you go next?
I don't know, and I don't worry about that.
Why? I like that.
Why? Because at the end of the year, like I said earlier, I didn't know what I was going to do, and then the download hit me literally couple weeks before the end of the year.
Always comes at the last
It
moment.
always, so like, why am I worried about something that doesn't even exist yet when I just need to take care of today?
I need to be better at that because I'm bad about that.
If I showed up today, then I'm good. But I decided to throw myself a curveball, and I said, man, I'm in a low spot. I'm going through a midlife crisis. I have to prove to myself I'm either getting better with age or I'm going to go buy the sports car.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to distract myself right now with the money that I have, thinking that I'm cool when I'm not, or I need to really just do something crazy to say that I'm getting better with age. Right?
Yeah.
And so I said, walked into a room at the office and said, I'm going to run 37 miles on my 37th birthday, because that download hit me. Because I said, what do I hate doing? What do I don't ever do? Run. Right? I never ran, ever. And so it was 39 days before. I went home, ran 3 miles, and said, what the hell did I say that for? It was brutal. And then I trained 9 more times and ran for 9.5 hours through the middle of the night. The second I turned 37 on midnight, I just ran through the night for 9.5 hours and did 37 miles. And then I congratulated myself for months about it. I would go around and I would tell people about it, and people would be like, wow,
that is crazy.
And I would be like, yeah, get a dopamine hit off of something I did back then, or whatever. And then it was like November, and I was like, man, because my birthday's in July, so it was almost the end of the year now, and I was at a low spot again. And then that's when I came to that question of what makes you feel best in your body and mind. And then on January 1st is when the 1,000-day challenge started, the 1,002 days every day. And then that ended up morphing after a couple years of being like, man, could I run 10 miles a day? Because originally it started with me lifting and then going for a couple mile walk or with like a weighted vest or whatever, kind of 75 hard stuff. And then it was like 3 or 4 months later, I was like, man, this shit ain't even hard for me no more. Like the whole point of this was to challenge myself. And now I can keep congratulating myself for doing something that used to be hard to me, but it's no longer hard because it's so normal. So then I called myself out and said, man, I need to start running a couple miles here and there, whatever. And then I would run a couple times throughout the week, and then it would morph into a few more times. And then when I would run, I would be running 10 or 15 miles on one of my workouts or whatever, and really pushing myself. And then it was like September, about 18 months into it, a little over 18 months. So I had 3 or 4 months left to finish out year 2. I was like, what if I could run 10 miles a day every day for one of my workouts in 2024? And my mind said, there's no way. Immediately. Immediately. The download hit, the thought said, there's no way. It's impossible, right? Yeah. And so I literally said, okay, cool. So if I actually can do it, I'm doing something that the old version of me thought was impossible.
Yeah, and that's got to be a huge confidence boost.
And so immediately I started with doing 4 to 5 miles minimum for a couple weeks every single day. And I was like, dude, there's no way. Based upon the way that I feel right now at 4 or 5 miles, there's no way I'm getting to 10. And I just kept going. And then I would turn it into minimum of 5. And then I would turn it into 6. I would just go a half a mile further before I'd turn around. Right.
See, that's what's good for people to hear.
And then I slowly creeped up to it, and then it was boom. And then I did it for the year, and now it's what's next. Reached it.
That's so good for people to hear, because I have a buddy in San Diego who's like, he's like, I have a hard time with this is before I had a podcast or anything. And he's like, man, I have a hard time with these podcasts that like with Goggins and Cam Hanes. And he's like, he says it's just like
so unrealistic.
He's like, I can't get there.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for people to hear, but they didn't start there.
Yeah,
like you're saying, it's like I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, I could never do that. I could never do that. But then you're like, well, I ran 2 miles, for a month, and then I ran 3, and then it's like, I could probably run 2.
Yeah, you can't.
That's what I think is good for people.
You can't do what they do, but what can you do?
Yeah.
I said it earlier in the podcast. I said, as long as you honor what your current capabilities are, your capabilities will then expand.
Yep. Every time.
It's every time. You just did, I saw you just did some pull-ups with, what's his name?
Truett Haynes.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And he just broke a world record.
Yeah.
Right? 10,001. Is that what he did?
His hands were so, they were so swollen.
Well, I didn't understand. Yeah, I didn't understand why they were swollen.
You know what I mean? Like, because of the rotation, every single pull-up.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, it shreds your complete hands. You're holding your grip for that entire time. Those muscles in your hands are just inflaming, tearing your ligaments. It's a lot.
But you watch that and you think, oh my heck, that is impossible.
Yeah.
But it's like he's probably started with 5 a day or
Yeah. Well, that's part of I believe proximity is important, right?
Yeah,
So what I did is that's the same story, dude. This is my life belief. Find the commonalities of people doing great things and then close the gap.
Right.
So what I did is when I went up to Mountain Ops, when he worked there, he don't work there no more. When I was meeting with Trevor, the owner that you know as well. So I shook his hand or whatever, and I said, hey, dude, your dad's the reason why I run 10 miles a day. I just wanted to shake your hand, right? And he had the world record previous of like 8,000 something, but somebody beat it. So then he went and did so I was like, man, I'd love to do some pull-ups with you. I'd love to challenge you to a pull-up competition.
Did he laugh a little bit?
Yeah, he kind of did. And he's like, yeah, let's go. And I said, let's go. You know, probably because there's not too many people that will say
challenge.
that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
But I wanted to see. I wanted to
where your gap was.
Yeah, I wanted to see where the gap was.
I like that.
Right, and so I said, why don't you go first? Set the bar. Give me something to chase. Is what I said. You can hear me say that in the video that I posted. And he's like, okay, cool. So he does 25, and when he gets off the bar, you can see him kind of breathing a little bit heavy.
Was it a time?
Whatever.
Was it timed?
No, it was just do as many as you can or whatever. And he just did 25 and said, hey, that gives you something to chase. That's a good bar right there or whatever.
And 25 pull-ups is a lot for anybody.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And he didn't think I could do it.
But that's
so
why he stopped there.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So I did 32.
Oh, nice.
Right, and beat him. I said, hey, thanks for letting a common guy like me feel good or whatever. But it was in that moment there too that I was like, okay,
I can hang.
We're not that far off.
I can hang.
We're really not. He just barely posted something where he did like as many as he could in a row or something. And it was either like 38 or 42.
Yeah.
Really?
So just because he could do 10,000 doesn't mean he could do 100 in a row.
Yeah,
You're breaking it down. What he's doing is he's
10 a minute was what it was.
It's like his lactic acid is what he's working on of not building it up. And, he's training his body in short little 10, chipping away 10 at a time. Not doing, you don't build up that much lactic acid by trying to shoot for 40 or 50 at a time. And then, what you're going to do is burn your muscles out really quickly that way, going to the max versus just doing something that doesn't even really feel like anything. 10 and drop, 10 and drop. But I was on the bar with him. I saw what he did and what he was looking like in terms of his struggle level at 25 before he dropped, and then me beating it, and I was like, it made me real. I'm like, dude. I think that's honestly part of the reason why I received the download of the Guinness Book of World Record, because I was like, dude, I was hanging, like I said, I was at the park with Goggins, right? He's over here, I'm over. We're in the same vicinity. I was in the same proximity of somebody that had a world record.
Yeah.
And what it did is it made him far more common of a man than just some guy on social media doing incredible things that I can't do. Yeah. Right.
Well, and so at that point in time, I think you're very capable of getting to that 10,000. What the thing is that a lot of people might not realize, it's pushing through past all that pain. Like, I bet you could do it.
That's what I think.
At that point in time. Like, but the amount of pain that he had to put himself through.
I've thought about it.
I was
at some point, like it's that mind over matter aspect. Like, I don't know how he was holding on to the bar. Yeah. Like, but he was. And, he kept on going. Yeah. And even after he'd beat it, he kept on going. Yeah. So it's like one of those things, where I love it when people push themselves past like a goal that like they didn't know if they were going to attain or whatever, and then they get there and they're like, I got more. Like I'm not going to stop now. I got more.
I'd be curious to know how much of it's mental, because I think it's
a huge amount,
a way bigger number than it's like
one of the things that
don't you think, as far as I think when you start doing
when I was out running the other day, I had a thought, like when you're molding clay, right? Your hands are the thing that's molding the clay, right? And I was like, man, all your body is your hands, and your brain is the clay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're saying it's far more mental, yeah, it is mental, but how do you get the mental fortitude? Mm-hmm. you utilize your body in a physical way that makes your brain squirm a little bit, and then you just do one more, right? Go that little bit further. And then again, honoring your capabilities so that they have the ability to expand. It is mental, but it's not like he was just, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm over. No, what he did is he continued to get mentally stronger through the bruteness.
He calloused his brain.
He calloused his mind by callousing his hands and callousing his body and going through the brutal process of using his physical being to callous the mind. And so is it mental? Is it the chicken or the egg that comes first?
I was going to say,
So it's like
I was going to say.
He used his physical to get the mental.
Without either or the other, without one or the other, you're done.
So if you're struggling mentally, you need to use the physical to get to the mental. And if it's, I can only do 1 mile, cool. Run out 1 mile, and you have no fucking choice but to turn back and go
you got
home.
A whole nother mile.
That's how I started doing it. When I didn't think I could do 10, I ran, and I knew I could do 5 or 6. I would just run out 5.
Yeah.
I had no choice but to turn around and get home, right? And even if I walked and ran, I chipped away at it, I was setting a new boundary for myself. In other words, I was exercising my mind, more so than anything. So,
well, that's interesting, man. I admire people like you that, I Chase knows it's like my purpose in life now, or not even my purpose, but my passion.
I would call it your purpose.
Yeah, it's just I want to meet cool people. I want to meet people who, live differently and push envelopes in whatever aspect they're doing. And it sounds like you're a very, the definition of that. And so I want to say that I appreciate you coming in here. I know time's our most valuable thing. And,
well, I might want to steal this podcast and just play it for real business owners.
Whatever you want. How you want to do that?
You know what I mean? Like,
do you have a podcast?
Yeah, I have a podcast.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay. It's a real business owners.
So I mean, I think it would be cool because we basically both shared our stories.
Yeah.
And it would be like double dipping, right?
For sure.
And I can have my audience, hear you as well, and hear a little bit more about M42 Adventures and. Do all that and put that in the bio.
So what do you do with that? Well, we didn't talk about it. We can talk about it real quick. Yeah. So what is it? Real
business owners?
Yeah. What is that?
It's a business podcast.
Just helping people. Yeah. Just talking about all things.
Yeah. It's all things. It's what it's turned into because it's just really talking about, what I'm into at the time. And when I started it 6 years ago, it was still the muddy journey, right?
Wow.
It was still,
you've been doing it a while.
It was still business. I
was wondering because there's like hundreds of episodes. I'm like, how long has he been doing this?
Yeah.
That's a long time.
February, March. In like a couple more months, it'll be 6 years straight, once a week. That's some
dedication right there.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm having a hard time with, man. I have a hard time with...
Consistency is like my superpower.
Is it?
You're like, I'm just keep on doing it regardless of what's happening.
Yeah. See, I'm bad about it. I hate being tied to something. And so there's something there. I got to figure that out. I got to work through that. But I like my freedom. And so having to do something, after being gone for so long, it's like, I'm struggling with that, especially when I'm going to go travel again. But I admire that. That's
needed,
another, again.
Man. It's that discipline. We have to do things that kind of make us like not want
that's where the growth is, right?
If all you're doing, like I said, is just honoring your feelings and the way that you feel, I mean, eventually you'll get to the point where you're at a very low spot. Your feelings are liars most often, right? Because what it's initially doing is seeking comfort. You like some of the things that you do, and I believe some of the things that make deadlines or this or consistency, like it just, for me, it keeps me honest. It keeps me showing up in a manner in which I prefer to show up as. I just think that, one, you have way too much life experience, too much success for you not to show up in a consistent manner for people, because it gets to the point where it's really not about you.
Yep.
Right. Like a lot of what I'm doing right now, for the most part, really isn't about me. Like, think about it. Michael Jordan didn't really say, I'm going to become the best basketball player in the world because I'm going to inspire millions of kids. He just had a desire to become the best basketball player in the world. And then by default, inspired a bunch of kids to play basketball, right? Goggins, same thing. He inspired a lot of people to start running because he was at a low spot or whatever it was, right? For me, I logically, I see these people doing things and I'm like, man, So you're telling me if I just honor what I'm capable of, I don't even have to tell people really what I'm doing. Just what I'm doing will be enough to inspire people to live a better life. And for me, that gives me purpose to keep showing up in the manner that I'm showing up in, because the messages that I receive or letters that I've got of people changing who they are based upon them hearing what I'm doing. So the days that I don't want to do it, I'm like, dude, there's me just showing up today, even though I don't want to do it, can make all the difference in the world for somebody else.
Oh, 100%.
And for you to show up, like the podcast or whatever, there's certain things that I believe that, you know, you have the ability to do for other people that might not be the funnest thing for you,
Right.
but will serve many.
Well,
right?
and yeah, and I appreciate all that. And the other thing too is when I was at the end of my travels last year, we'd gone for about like 3 years then. And I remember riding around, we were in Scotland when we kind of ended up. And I says to Gina, I'm like, this isn't doing it for me right now. You know, I'm like, I'm ready to go home. And I says, I think I'm going to start M42. I didn't have the name then, but I'm like, I think I need to do something. And so I'm going to fight that battle a little bit. You know, I am getting there to where it's to be real, you know, it's like, I got to make sure that it's funny because like you said, it's anything in life, you know, with travel, it's like, that's what I love and that's what I want to do. And I told me and my wife have both said, you know, I think another year to 2 years and we'll be good. Not overall, but long term.
Yeah. No more like long.
And so I need something else to go into. And I do love this. The thing that I love about it is like having cool conversations, meeting cool people, going on the adventures, you know, and so that's where I hope I can do it. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how you do.
Yeah.
I don't doubt you, man.
I'm already a world record holder, bro.
Are you?
Yeah.
What?
Mentally.
Yeah.
It's already done.
Sure.
Time just hasn't caught up.
Yeah.
Well,
I already know what I've gone through and what I've endured. I don't think that there's anything that I'm going to see that's uncommon for me or that I haven't already overcome.
Yeah.
But it's that type of
crazy.
mentality. You know, I told Rick this one time, I have a weird mentality in that aspect. Like in one of the chefs that I've been working with for years, Jeff Crossland, when we go into situations, because we cook outdoors so much, you know, and it's a very uncontrollable environment. And everything that you do is, you know, dictated on perfection and all these things. You still have to do all that stuff, even though you're out in the middle of nowhere. And you know, people always asked us, you know, like, how do you guys do this? And it's like, I don't ever, not for a second, ever, even for an inkling, ever even take into my mind that anything's going to fail. Like there's going to be twists and turns and I'm going to have to deal with some stuff and I'm going to have to pivot and I'm going to have to do all these different things. And I know that, but in no way I have like a zero fail. Like even if something went wrong, it's still not a failure. You know, like my mind is just in that aspect of that always that success is happening regardless. And very few times in my life have I ever had something, you know, given that mindset that actually went to the point where like I was not able to like deal with it. It's a very, you know, minuscule point, but I think having that mindset of just like, I got it, you know.
Have you ever
like,
seen,
no matter what.
there's a Netflix show, I can never remember, I need to go find it because I talk about it a lot, but it's a Netflix show and it's where these guys, it's this Sherpa.
Yeah.
That's going to climb like 4 or 5 peaks.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that? Do you know that? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's called 7 Peaks
Is that what it is?
or something like that.
It's something peaks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And did you see where he gets to like the second or third peak?
Yeah.
And they're stuck. People are like, we can't go up, you can't summit. And
Yeah.
he's like, I have a timeline. I have to climb these peaks in a certain amount of time. And they're like, you can't do it. And he goes and does it. And he comes back to camp and all the people, all these amazing climbers were like, dude, you're nuts.
14
man.
peaks.
14 peaks.
It's 14 peaks. Nothing is impossible is what it's called.
Is it?
Oh,
And do you
that's
remember
what
him
it's called.
talking? And he says,
Oh, I watched that over and over and over.
Do
bro.
you?
I did when it
I need
first
to go
came out.
watch it.
I
I
would
need to go
watch
watch
it
it.
over and over and over because I get so fascinated with that mentality.
Dude,
I love it.
that's what you
I live
remind
in
me
a
of.
world
That's
of
what you remind me of.
impossibilities. I love that idea. People tell me stuff's impossible all the time. I'm like, I don't
Well,
believe that.
he went up and he says they're meeting at the end and he did it and he comes back to the base camp and they're like, dude, how did you do that? And he says, you know what? You guys, nobody knows what they're capable of until they're in a really bad
Tough situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He says most people on earth have never pushed themselves to where it's like life or death.
Yep.
And he says, I live there.
Yep.
And he says, and I just know that I got more. And he says, I wish everybody on earth could feel that because you're capable of so much and we just coast and I need to go watch that again. But that's an amazing show. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out.
I
But
will
that's what
check
you
it out.
remind me of, where it's just like,
That's awesome. I never even heard of it.
yeah, that's right.
Oh,
dude.
I turned it on and then
he's a
watched it
Sherpa.
over and over and over.
No, that's awesome.
And they can't get sponsors and stuff. You know, the Americans get all the sponsors and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to do 14 peaks in like 3-4 months, or I don't remember.
Well, it was 7 months,
Was it
but
7?
It was, which is the hiking season. But the previous world record was like 7 years or 10 years.
Holy shenanigans!
Because it takes they said it takes 6 months to a year of planning for each one of those peaks that he did, and it was the 14 highest peaks in the world, and
he just rocked it.
Oh,
He
there was
shows
one
up.
day where he did 2 of the highest peaks in the world just back to back, no sleep.
Did he?
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness!
it was like 48 hours,
So
and they're
crazy.
saying, well, the average person has to get to a certain spot, and then they acclimate. That's why there's base camps.
Yeah.
Because your oxygen levels and your body can't handle it, even though they took some oxygen and stuff, which some people say that's cheating or whatever. But
Yeah, you can do it. Either way, both are. Go do it.
Yeah,
Go try
Just
it.
do it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's a good.
and the only reason why I think it took him, it was like 6 months and some odd days or something. His goal was 7 months, and it was an extreme goal that nobody thought he would ever be able to accomplish. And the reason why it even took him that long is because it's like China or
There was a war,
something like
yeah.
that.
They wouldn't-
Well, there was a mountain, one of the highest peaks. They had it shut down.
That's right.
So they had to campaign.
That's right.
And have the government
What
open
in the
up the
world?
mountain just so that, and it took him weeks
Yeah.
to
I
get
remember
that
that.
approval for him to even summit and come back down. So it would have been even faster. But
To get
it's an
inside that
incredible
guy's
story.
mind.
Yeah.
And
that
just-
fascinates me. That's why. That's part
That's
of
how
why
that-
I
yeah,
do what I
yeah, it
do.
reminds me of-
is because I watch. Last night I watched the Michael Jordan documentary again.
Yeah, the dance or whatever. What's
Yeah.
it called?
I
That's
I don't.
such a good
If
show.
you ever see me watching
seen that one?
anything,
No.
which I don't watch TV or do
Yeah,
anything.
I'm like,
the
I
only
haven't
thing I
watched a lot of
ever do
stuff.
is documentaries of people that have done extraordinary things, because I want to see how their mind works. I want to understand how they think, so that I know, like, I want to become that.
Yeah.
I want to become that. So
Yeah.
I get fascinated by it, and I enjoy just soaking it in and watching
I am too.
great people be great, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
How do people find you then? So you got the podcast?
You can go to Real Business Owners on Instagram, or Real Business Owners Podcast is probably the 2 best ways to find me.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming in and
Yeah, it was
having a
fun.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to meet
Awesome,
you.
Trevor.
Likewise.
All right, so there you have it, man. Just a very just a very cool individual he's obviously been through a lot, suffering from a lot of addiction and things like that, substance abuse. And he's found a way, like he said, to put up guardrails and to funnel that addiction into things that, are healthy. And so, as you heard on there, he's going to, I think it's April or March 23rd, I think he said, he's going to start the attempt to break the world record for the longest consecutive half marathon days of running. The current record, he said, is like 235, and he's going to try to, beat that and some. So you heard me when I said there, good luck. And he says, it's already done. It's already done in my mind. Now I just got to go and lace up the shoes and hit the asphalt. So very inspirational person. I got a lot out of that. That was a very good, deep conversation. A lot of points in there and a lot of good, ways to make you think and question and analyze all aspects of your life. Are you giving all of your potential? Are you, if you have vices, how to control them, how to, put your addictions into a better, avenue to help your life, not hurt your life. And so, very, very cool conversation. Good person, good dude, good dad, good husband, and somebody that I'm excited to hopefully, have a friendship with and spend more time with. So thank you, Trevor, for coming in. Again, if you need to find him, it's realbusinessowners.com. Or is it .com? I don't know if it's a website.
No, it's definitely on Facebook. They just started.
So you can go to social media. He's on there.
And then there's a podcast for it.
Yeah, podcast as well. So Real Business Owners. And again, if you want to follow his story on his marathon journey, that's an amazing just unbelievable. Not even just the physical aspect, but the consistency to get up every day and do that. You know, I mean, all of us have bad days. We get sick, you know, whatever. And he's got to get up and continue to do that consecutively for hundreds of days. And so I'm excited to follow along. I appreciate him coming in, taking his time to talk to all of us, and great conversation. So again, thanks for following us. Thanks for listening. Check out the Genesis, our online community. You can go to m42adventures.com and check out the Genesis. It's free. It's our online community. We're doing a giveaway right there right now when we hit 250 members, which we're about half that, 125. When we hit 250 members, we're going to give away an adventure here in southern Utah at my cabin at Elevation 40 Zion on Instagram. You can check it out. It's insane. And we're going to do shooting and side-by-sides and just spend the day together, you know, and that's going out to only Genesis members. So again, there's no cost. There's no hidden, you know, fees, or we don't ask for your credit card. We are sincerely just trying to change lives, help people who need help. And we're doing a lot inside the Genesis. We have mentors. We have 9 mentors now that are speaking in their relative fields. And I'm learning a lot personally. And I highly encourage you to get in there, tell your friends, tell your family. And, you know, obviously we need people to have a community, and we need you. And there's no catch. There's nothing you have to lose here as far as financial. It's just your time, and I believe it will be rewarded. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you go and do an adventure this weekend. Say yes, get outside, walk a mile, go fishing, go play golf, you know, and live the adventure. Don't be a spectator. So appreciate you listening. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.